Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Hey, good afternoon. This is Jeff Johnson, your host of the Local Leaders Podcast, coming to you once again from the great state of North Carolina. And I am thrilled and excited to have Andy Sehremelis with me today from Archibald Burgers. Welcome, Andy, and thank you for joining the show.
Thank you for having me today. Can I just say I was recently in North Carolina, I believe in Wilmington, and what a state. That is a state that I would do business in too, just so you know. I didn't realize you were from North Carolina. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I neglected to share that with you, but yeah, I'm right in the heart of North Carolina. I'm about 90 miles from, maybe a little less from the mountains, and maybe 2.5 hour drive to the coast. So
okay.
You can't beat that location, but we're thrilled to have you here today, and thank you for joining us on the Local Leaders Podcast to share your experiences and your knowledge and all the stuff that you've been through. And I just want to start by giving you an opportunity to just kind of tell a little bit about, the story of the business. And I know you grew up in the restaurant business, so that's probably got some interesting stories there as well.
Sure. I did grow up in the restaurant business. My father had a restaurant in North Long Beach, California called Golden Burger. And I worked in that restaurant from the time I was about 6-7 years old. So I did started from the back and worked my way to the front. Best way to, if you're going to get in the restaurant business, that's probably the best way to learn it. And been doing it all my life. I did work my way through college in the restaurants, became a real estate developer, and I also operate other businesses in addition to the Archibald's business that I founded. I founded two other businesses, and I'm very excited. I really enjoy the restaurant business, though. Some people don't like the operations side of it. I enjoy the challenges, and we're able to overcome a lot on a daily basis, especially here in California, where the restaurant businesses are highly regulated. The state is it's a very challenging state to do business in, and we're doing a good job. I'm very proud of my team, and I've got a great team of young adults that are working with me.
That is fantastic, and you guys are in 5 locations now around California, unless you've added another since I last looked at the website.
Well, what I do, I'm very conservative. So what I've done with Archibald's is I have 5 locations. I had 6. It was an underperforming location, so I actually took my development experience and converted it into a real estate deal. I am working on 3 additional Archibald's in California, Nevada, and we're expanding now also into the Phoenix market.
That is absolutely incredible, and I think you started. Was it what year did you get going? 2020.
Opened my first Archibald's in 2020. And if you want to hear the background on that, it was kind of interesting. I was developing a property in Ontario, and I was going to do a Walgreens on the hard corner, and they pulled out of the deal. Then I signed a deal with a gentleman with Burger King, and he pulled out. So I said to my partners at that time, why don't we just open a restaurant? And we named it after the street, Archibald, which it was on at that time. And it was so successful. It was amazing. And then about a week after we opened, Walgreens came to us and said, hey, now we want to be here, and we'll pay you for that site, and we'll build you a new building on Riverside Drive. And so I put my developer's hat on, and I went along. We did the deal. We actually had 2 Archibalds running at the same time for a period of time.
Oh, wow.
And Victorville, we did Archibald's in Victorville on Bear Valley Road in the 15, which is now a Super Walmart center. And then I did other deals, Archibald's after that. And I really enjoy it. For me, it's a pleasure, because growing up in that business, there's just something about it that draws you to it.
Yeah, it's the nostalgia and takes you back to your roots and back to your parents. And
yeah.
And it's, that's a great combination. You don't every day see a restaurateur who's, well, you see it often, but not every day, with the development background as well. And, location is a critical piece, and the real estate itself is a critical piece. And, it's great to come in with that experience. I was going to ask you how you wound up in Canada with that Ontario location. So you've just shared it.
Ontario, California.
California. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, that's okay. A lot of people confuse it with Ontario, Canada, though.
Yeah, I thought, well, that's a break from California, certainly, to jump up to Canada. But that is a great story, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. And I guess maybe I want to ask you first about how having the development background that you have, how has that helped you in site selection and the deals that you put together with Archibald so far?
Right. So a lot of the sites that I try to get into, I try to acquire the property, the real estate side, and then I can kind of control how I'm going to position my store. In today's market, it's difficult to buy the land because most developers, property owners would prefer to ground lease. And at that point, and I'm looking at doing ground leases. And then my next challenge is getting into some of these larger centers. They prefer the larger brand name stores like the McDonald's, the Chili's, and so on. Yeah. And because my menu is so broad, I compete with those locations. So they may not want me in there. So they try to put exclusions in to keep my store out of that location. So, but I'm working on expanding now. So I'm on a growth mode. And so that's one of my challenges. In California, I think the biggest challenge is simply getting a permit. It takes so long. It could take up to 2 to 3 years just to get a building permit where you could even build a restaurant from the ground up. And so that's why I piggyback on these ground leases in California also. So we're negotiating some of those.
So are you able to take, for a novice like myself who doesn't understand ground lease versus purchase, are you able to bypass any of the regulation or permitting by doing the ground lease?
Yeah, you do bypass a lot of it. You bypass the CEQA process, which is called the California Environmental Quality Act, which is why you see a lot of developers moving out of state, such as where I could go to St. George, Utah, and because I did a project up there a few years ago and be entitled in 90 days, meaning I can pull a permit to start construction in 90 days versus California, who has the CEQA requirements. It could take.
So another reason to really strategize before if you're one of our listeners who's looking for locations, they're at the front end of maybe that first project, it opens the door when you kind of expand your thoughts, and maybe you don't have to put this project right in your little hometown, of Minnesota or Chicago or wherever you might be. There's opportunity all across the U.S.
Sure, absolutely, and there is, and that's why I've come to North Carolina and other states, Florida, Texas, to look at these opportunities, because the opportunity costs these lesser costs are important because they factor into your bottom line, and then the labor costs also are important. Insurance, workers' comp, the litigiousness of a state is very important because the type of insurance you have to keep. And so on. So there's a lot of factors into the restaurant business today than there were when my father opened his first restaurant back in 1962 in Chicago.
Yeah. I was going to say completely different landscape back then, and things certainly have changed and become a lot more challenging. And
right.
It's, for those of our listeners, again, they're looking at project and ideas. I just would encourage you, as Andy has said, to look around the country because there are a lot of great cities, a lot of great spots that may offer you a lot more opportunity and a lot of savings if you consider putting your location or your project over there. Let me ask you about one of the big challenges in the industry right now and kind of how you guys are dealing with it, and that is staffing. You talk about having a great team, but has that been a tremendous challenge of late, and kind of what are you guys doing to get around that issue?
So I'm having the staffing challenges as everyone else is in all my various. in all my businesses. So what I try to do now is I have a training. I'm able at this point to have a training facility where we're training staff, and we're training staff to multitask. That's important. So you have to have a person that is willing, first of all, to multitask and be able to do all the jobs that are required within a restaurant at a specific time as needed. And, which means, I was doing this prior to COVID also. It requires a certain type of mindset and individual too, to do that. And one of the things we try to explain, especially to these youngsters that come in, is that we know that you're only going to be here for a short period of time, either through high school or college. But this is a good learning. Fast food restaurants, or restaurants in general, if as a stepping stone to get to the next level, I'm telling you, it's a great learning experience, because you learn how to communicate with people and interact, first of all, which is very important. You learn how to multitask, which is very important. So what we've been doing to get past this hurdle is continuing to do our cross training within our locations. Obviously, we have to pay more because we are basically competing with the federal government right now. So my minimum wage is much higher, but yet we've had to make the adjustments in our pricing in order to do this, because we've seen the cost of our proteins go up substantially. We've seen the cost of a lot of our items, our wholesale items coming in, produce too, especially going up substantially because of the cost of labor, the cost of bringing the items to us. Fuel has gone up, I think, substantially in the last 6 to 8 months. And, so with those costs, unfortunately, we have to pass that back to the consumer. But again, so that's been a great challenge for us. I will tell you that we have one restaurant that, because of the staffing issue that we have closed, we only run that operation 5 days a week. So we closed. It's the one that we have down in Belmont Shore, because it's far away from our other stores. So it's difficult to bring people in to work and fill in gaps, which we have both. We have rovers that come in and do that, again, because we have the number of locations that we can do that. That's, if you don't, then it's challenging. That's when I would put on my apron, and I've done it in the past, and I become the cook, I become the cashier, the prep person, whatever it takes to get shit done. I hate to use that term, but that is what you have to do.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's a great strategy, and the fact that you've grown enough to be able to support and utilize rovers. Number one is not something a single shop or a single location facility can take advantage of. So you got the benefits of scale in your area. With the exception of the further off location. And like a lot of other restaurateurs, you've had to adjust your hours and days being open to deal with it. How about the COVID challenge? Did it, how did it impact you, and has it changed you forever, or are you still how you started?
I'll tell you what. So when COVID first came about, I remember this. I had a discussion with one of my senior persons. He was very concerned, to the point where he was afraid to live in California. And I said, listen, I need my key people to be strong and to be role models for everybody else. We have to be strong, and we will get through this. Because I've survived, I think, 4 recessions, riots, you name it. I've been there, and I've survived them all. I've never lost a location. I've never bankrupted myself, anything like that. You have to hunker down, you dig in, and then you deal with the devil in the eye. And this devil, you couldn't see it. And so the first thing I did is I reached out to the local health authorities and to the counties to find out what type of information is available to me as a restaurateur that will, number one, protect my staff. That was my number one priority. I wanted to protect my employees. Secondly, I wanted to protect my customers too, coming in and patronizing my location, because I did not want anyone to become ill from it. And we did, and so I did that, and we immediately, as soon as we could, became COVID compliant. We received certificates and training, and then we, again, back to our training, man. Every day it's all about training too. And we trained our staff, and there were challenges. There were people that didn't want to comply, unfortunately, that lost their jobs because of it. And that's understandable, and that will happen. And then so we got through that challenge. And then the next thing was, because 4 of my locations have drive-throughs. So I then went out and adjusted the way we took orders, wherein we acquired immediately handheld devices to go out, try to keep our drive-through flowing, which it was. We bring cars around, we'd have a pickup area, we take food out. We then went to the curbside pickup also, which was a huge success, huge success. And same thing, people would come in through our apps, they would order, and then we take food out to them. And then the third thing we did is, as COVID started to, as we started to understand COVID, which we're still trying to understand COVID, we provided outdoor seating in front of our locations. All the cities that we work with allowed us to put up tents and provide outdoor areas that were ventilated that people could sit in. And I must say that it was very successful. We actually did very well during COVID. Thank God.
Yeah, absolutely. That's tremendously inspirational to those that are, are still trying to adjust and make changes. Of course, if you haven't adjusted by now, you may not make it in terms of getting adjusted. But it's
restaurant definitely not make it.
Yeah. It was a heck of a challenge, and it sounds like go ahead.
I was going to say one other thing that was very helpful, and it was extremely helpful. It not only is it helpful for me to grow because I grew using it, but I worked with the SBA, and they were very helpful in my expansion of my businesses and through COVID.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I haven't asked that question in a while, but I often ask about mentors and great great places to go for information and for help, and SBA is certainly one of them. And oftentimes you hear of people like SCORE, being a lot of assistance, and there's always incubators in most of these cities as well that do a great job.
Right.
So hopefully and I appreciate you mentioning SBA because we haven't actually mentioned them in some time. So thank you for that.
They were extremely helpful.
Yeah. Let me take you back to the first Archibald. You had your first location.
Yeah.
How did you know, or when, I guess how is a better question. How did you determine when it was time to add number 2?
So number 1 was so successful that I said to myself, you know what, I think I'm going to get back into the restaurant business. And I remember my father telling me, God rest his soul, he goes, I can't believe that you got back into the restaurant business. It's like, he goes, it's in my blood. What can I tell you? It's your fault. So when we did number 1, we were approached by a developer in Victorville, very nice man. Mm-hmm. And he told me he was going to build a super Walmart center and that he could put us in the front of that location. And so I drove up I remember driving up there for the first time, and I looked around and all I saw were sand dunes. And when I got out of the car, I was talking to he was a contractor. He goes, yeah, that's all that's up here, sand dunes and rattlesnakes. And I'm looking around, I go, rattlesnakes? I'm going, wow, I mean, I live in Long Beach, man. We don't have rattlesnakes down here. So anyways, but so we were a pioneer. It was a pioneer deal. And most of my expansion deals that I do are what's called pioneer deals. I follow the home builders. I go out to areas where I know they're coming. I buy land, or I try to work with a developer or property owner to do a deal on their property. And then you wait a year or 2 for them to come. And they do come, and the area grows, and the super Walmart came, and the 2-laner became a 6-lane highway, and the shopping mall came across the street. And these things become very lucrative. And then it's just a matter of operations, and that's key.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. And, assuming that you're capitalized or have the ability to get capital, when you need it to be able to be in those positions, and you guys are, because that's a long-term investment strategy, I would say.
The way we did that deal was interesting. And again, people, when they have to have that business mind, because a lot of restaurateurs are chefs and so on. I'm not a chef. I learned the business through my father. My menu is the refined version of my father's menu growing up. But you have to understand finance. You also can't be afraid to ask. And I went to that gentleman that invited me up there, and I said, hey, I don't have the financial ability to do this yet. What can you do to help me? And so what I told him is, why don't you build my building, add your land cost in there, come up with a return on rent. I'll put a little of my own money in. And I'll tell you, at that time, I opened that store with credit cards and bad checks, but which I covered eventually, but still. And then the faith of some of my suppliers who helped me. A gentleman, Larry Patsouris, who owned El Greco, helped me quite a bit getting started. A friend of mine, Basil Milan, helped me when I opened my first Archibald's on Riverside in Archibald. He believed in me, invested. These people all invested, and I made sure that they got their return. And so you have to look at all those avenues. So he basically built the building for me. I paid him a rent, and then I had an option to buy it back in 5 years. And I went to my good friends at the SBA, and I financed 90% of it, and I bought it back. And so there's options, there's opportunities there. You just have to explore and look. So if you're going to open a new restaurant, look at all the financial opportunities that are available to you. And especially today, the federal government is providing, there's a lot of resources out there now for people that are just starting these businesses.
Andy, that's great advice. And, and you put it so succinctly, and it really opened my eyes to the opportunities. And if you've got a great idea, a great, right. Great project, and maybe you're not the financial guy, maybe you are the chef or what have you, go find a financial guy. That's what I would say. What would you tell them?
First, I think the chef if he could expand a little bit and then try to find that financial guy that's out there. But, the key is someone that'll do explore and work with you. Now, you can go to a lot of small community banks, I think would be a good source to start with, rather than the larger banks, because I think the larger banks are they're selective. Yeah. Yet if you go to let me just turn this thing off. If you go to a community bank, I think it'll be a little bit more, they'll work with you more, because their goal is to expand small business.
Right.
So that would be a source. But and then go to the people go to the landlord, go to the property owner. I mean, if they believe in you, they'll invest in you. You got to ask. A lot of people don't ask. See, that's the thing.
Yeah, afraid you might hear no, which is really the worst thing that you can get. Right.
Let me tell you, you're going to hear no more than you're going to hear yes. And I'm going to tell you what I tell my kids. You're going to hear no 99% of the time. You go out 1,000, ask 1,000 people, you're going to hear no 99% of the time. Each time you hear no, that builds integrity. That has to motivate you to go again. It cannot be a demotivational thing for you. You've got to accept no and move on to the next thing. That's important. It's mindset too, with these youngsters today. But I love watching these young kids today getting started and working hard, because hard work does pay off.
Yes, sir. And you would know, starting at 6 years old with your dad probably
sure.
Kicking you in the pants if you weren't working hard enough, right?
How did you know?
Because my dad did the same thing. We older gentlemen, we've been around the block a little bit.
Got that boot up our ass a few times.
You call that work? Get going. Yeah. What do you mean you're hungry? You hadn't done enough to be hungry yet. We all had those stories. Well, I think that those are some great pieces of advice. And again, I want to be respectful of your time. If you got just a few more minutes for me to hit you with maybe two more.
I set aside a whole hour for you. So
okay, good. Well, I appreciate that. Because I think I could ask you questions all day. But I want to touch on, we're talking about finances and things like that. I want to touch on metrics, the operational metrics, and the financial metrics. How important is that to watch on a day-to-day basis? And specifically, how are you measuring success for your each location?
So first of all, I'm glad you asked that question, because that's key. I break it down. I'm a firm believer in analytics, and we break things down in our businesses quite. I don't want to say I micromanage, but I personally do not. But I've trained my managers and general managers to micromanage certain items. Primarily, we look at labor. We look at food cost. We review our financials monthly. looking for anomalies. Because again, analytics is important. It's key to being successful and maintaining your margins.
That's great. Well, I've talked to a number of people, and it's really funny the range of answers you get there, because some people, especially the chef owner operators, they're so in tune with the food side that they're not as often in tune with the financial side, and they're looking for customer experience, and are they people happy coming and going, and of course they've got to make a profit, but I always do like to bring up those areas and those questions, because you got to have a balance of both. And
that's important also.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you balance it.
I'm going to tell you about that, because I'm glad you brought it up, because our marketing team, Alyssa, we review our weekly Yelp and Google and so on comments. We look to see, some of them are, things that we don't look at, but there's certain things that we do look at there, and we analyze that, and we go back and run videos on it if there's something that we think is wrong, or something that we can use to do better. Preferably, it's a great learning tool, and it's a great tool for that, to make sure that customer does have a good customer experience, because I want my customers to have a good customer experience. I know what the value of my customer is. My average ticket's probably it's high, it's maybe almost $20. But I respect that customer that spends that $20 in my store, and I want to make sure that they have a good experience.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical, and with the tools and things available today on the marketing side that I'm sure Alyssa takes advantage of.
Right.
It gives you that analytics, that component that you speak about on the financial side. You've now got it on the customer experience side, and I think one of the mistakes. Well, maybe not mistakes, but opportunities for improvement we see, with some restaurateurs, is that they're so caught up in the day-to-day operations of the business, they find it very difficult to add focus over here on the customer side and respond to those on a regular basis. So, trying to find a way to balance that is just challenging, and you guys are where you are today. You've got the scale now, and you've got the resources to put on to problems. But how would you recommend? I mean, what would you recommend to a one location chef owner who's in the kitchen, and also trying to create a successful brand that he or she can maybe expand or grow? What kind of advice might you give them?
I think it gets down to training the staff and communication. I think communication is the most important thing in any business. You have to be able to communicate with your staff, with your customers, and so on, and getting that feedback and being able to analyze it and make good decisions from it, and growing. And if you have a 4-man staff, and plus myself, it's just a matter of training that staff to see through your eyes. I mean, I tell my people, we do core inspections in my stores, which are tougher than health inspections, because I want my stores to be clean. I mean, I tell my staff, when I walk up, I better think I'm in Disneyland, and I'm very picky, and they have to see through my eyes. He has to train that person that has 4 or 5 employees. He has to train them to look through his eyes, and he then has to understand, if you're going to be in this business, and I got to tell you, restaurant business is a tough business. It's not easy. It is not easy. I mean, I grew up in it. That's why. But it's not easy. But if you can train your staff to look through your eyes, and you have a good positive attitude, that's important, because that will radiate to them, and then they have to maintain that attitude no matter what happens out there, and train them to deal with conflict and de-escalation and so on and all that, which is what I did when I first started. You will then grow, because people will feel good coming to your location. They'll want to come. They'll come to a clean location. They'll come to a place that the bathrooms are clean and the staff is happy. And guess what? You could probably charge more because of that too, because the last thing and then food is good. And then they're going to pay the bill, and they're not going to realize that maybe they paid more there than they did down the street, because they had a good experience and it was worth it to them. So that's important. So you take those 4 people, whoever they are, and train them to have that mindset. And if they can't get there, then you need to get people that will get you there, because you are only as successful as the people that are working with you.
That's amazing advice, and absolutely true. It's hard to execute, but that is the plan and what you have to drive toward.
It's very difficult to execute. That's why it takes
Yeah.
time and patience.
Yeah, time and patience. The things we have the least of, right?
You will get.
Yeah, well, that fantastic. Thank you for that. And speaking of training and development and things like that, you've got your training facility, which we didn't go into any, detail on, but are you out, in addition to the operations and other training components, how are you, or how is the company developing, new leaders, new GMs, specifically, or do you have leadership training programs in place or mentorship programs?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, we do have programs available for people that would like to elevate themselves and make this into a career. One of the things that I do now is on my management side, I pay for them to go to get their associate's degree if they don't have it, and their bachelor's degree. So we do provide training, educational training to them. My upper staff, management and general managers, I meet with them frequently, and I work with them and talk to them and train and try to motivate them, and again, make them look through my eyes. And and it works. I've got 2 general managers that started as prep boys with me. One of which I told him, I said, "You have great management skills and you're organized." And he was like 18. I go, "I would like you to train to be a manager." He didn't want to do it. And then I would tell my general manager, keep asking. Finally, he did, and he managed a store. And now he's in charge of my restaurant operations.
Wow.
And he's going to college, and he's getting he finished his high school diploma first. He didn't have that. Going to college, getting his degree, and he's doing a great job. And these are the kids that will enable me to grow and eventually become a franchisee for me. I can franchise my stores if I so chose to right now, but I'm not doing it yet because I need to build up a solid foundation staff, which I'm doing right now.
Where do you see, where do you need to get to before you think you're at that point? Is it a store number, or is it more of a?
I'm there. The store number's 5. I mean, that's kind of the number you get before you move forward. I think I need to be able to turn my businesses over to somebody that I know will manage them the way I would manage them. And I'm getting there. As a founder of a business, you're the worst person to be involved in a franchise. I will tell you that I started franchising about 3 years ago. I brought in a franchise group out of Chicago, and I went to one of my restaurants. I had a bowl of soup, and I'm tasting the soup, and I go, "This is not fresh soup." I make my food. My food's made fresh daily. Anything that I can make in-house, I make in-house, which is kind of rare today. Yeah. And so I immediately removed it, and I got a call from my Chicago, and they said, "Listen, you can't go in stores and do these things," because I said, "I can't sell canned soup in my stores. Are you kidding?" Yeah. At that point, it was a dissolution, settlement, move on, and I'm just going to do it my way as long as I can until. I'm sorry. I know I'm the worst guy and I could grow doing franchises, but yet I could also grow doing it my way and training these young kids. And if they want to get involved and understand the concept, they can. So I'm that founder that doesn't like change or doesn't want to go backward or doesn't want to buy lettuce out of a bag. I want to cut it fresh every morning. So that's kind of that's the downside to my franchising side of me. But I may change eventually. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I am double the operation within the next few years.
Double?
Yeah, I'll definitely have 5 more stores within the next 2-3 years.
That is. Are there any that you can announce or mention that are coming forward?
I'm working on 2 in California. I'm working on 2 in Nevada, and I'm working on 2 in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area. Yeah,
you did mention those. So
and once I get my foundation set up there, my teams, I'll expand into those areas a little bit more.
Yeah, and then you'll have your opportunities for scale in each locale.
Have that opportunity for scale is huge, but as a small business guy just starting, you got to grow into that, and you'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Any, I mean, you've given a lot of advice. I'm just sitting here trying to think, all right, where do we want to take that? We've, maybe got 5 or 10 more minutes to talk. We talked about leadership. We talked about training. We talked about operations, and metrics, I guess, per se. We talked about property. I'm just getting a little recap here in my own brain to try to figure out where we might want to go. You have businesses outside of the restaurant space as well.
Yes, I do.
How is founding and running those businesses different from the restaurant business?
It's funny because you say that. I try to create a system that's important in the restaurant. I learned that from my father way back. You have to have a system that you have to follow and maintain on a daily basis. And what I've done is basically implemented that system into my other businesses, which are more automotive, fueling, car wash related. I also have a development company. And so if you walk into my offices at all the locations, they look pretty similar. They're set up similar. We practice the same analytics, the same customer service requirements, the same staff training requirements at all my businesses. So it's very consistent, and try to maintain that system. And so that's important.
Yeah, that's another piece of good advice, because, and I'm just sitting here thinking as you're talking about my business, and we're doing a few things different today, and I'm trying to get my arms around that system to manage, the additional complexity. So I still struggle. I'm still struggling with that area on this new piece.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to tell you something. I learned it from my dad. Just said, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Come up with 4 or 5 key things and work off of that. That's what he told me. And I'm telling you, it's so simple, because people ask me, how are you able to do all these things with your mind and this and that? And I just have this simple system, which I'll tell you when we're together. I'll come out there and see you next time I'm out there. And it's just so simple, you're going to laugh. Because my father came here from the old country. He came from Greece. He was 15 years old. I have a picture of him over here. He was an orphan, and he just had nothing. He started a restaurant, and he just kept it simple. He was successful in life. He did well. And I just followed his system. That's it. I mean, I went to college, I worked 3 jobs, went to school at night, got a degree, all that, learned all that. But the best education I got was from my dad. And it was just very simple, and that's.
Yeah, I was about to say, some of us, including myself, tend to overcomplicate things and sometimes overthink it. I do that a lot.
People think themselves out of doing what they want to do because they overthink it. And that's the problem. You got to think with that other side and train yourself. It's hard. I know. I work with attorneys and architects or engineers. I see it with engineers a lot. And they overthink things to the point where they can't take the first step. And that's the most important thing. And that's number 1 on the list of the simplest things that my dad taught me. Don't be afraid to take the first step and ask. So
I love that. I love that one. That may be the title of this show. Take the first step. All right. Well, I think you've been a fantastic guest, and you've just got a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and I can really tell what, I feel the passion coming out of you, especially when you talk about developing these young people, and watching them grow and becoming, better leaders. And if I had to say from just this initial meeting is that's kind of one of the things that really motivates you, probably more than the success and the money and all those other things out there. Would you say that's true?
It is very true. I'm very proud of these youngsters that have come through my operations, that have become doctors, lawyers, engineers, city council people. I mean, they've all worked for me at one point, and I'm very proud of them. So, and anytime you want to talk, give me a call. We can chat.
I would love to, because although you've created a bunch of businesses, you've really created a mechanism for developing and helping other people. Achieve success. And
right.
That
is the best thing anybody could ask for. I mean, to educate my kids to see them all successful is huge. I mean, for me, that's being worth more than $1 billion, or you can't put money on that. But yet to see these other kids coming from challenging families and lives and so on, and they come to me and they're able to buy into what I tell them, and they listen, and they don't get involved. They don't go down that wrong path. And then they become successful later in life. I mean, I'm so proud of them. It's like, they're like my kids. Like, yeah. I watch them grow, and you become so proud of them. So, and they're not working for me anymore, but we're still friends.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And I can feel it coming out of you. I can feel the passion when you talk about the kids and the development piece. And, I think that's what, hopefully our audience and the business owners out there, we all get so caught up in the day-to-day and the stress and the things that are hitting us, the fires that we're fighting. And I hear that all the time. We're firefighters here.
It's the challenge.
You got to find a way to keep it simple, put a system in place, and again, a simple system, and, try to enjoy what you're doing.
That's exactly. If I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I wouldn't be doing it. Yeah. And it's the challenge, like you said, putting out those fires, but you can put them out, and you do it in a way that doesn't give you a stroke or a heart attack. You have to just put everything in perspective and deal with it and get through it. And then the next day you get up, you put on your boots, and you get your sword and your shield and your helmet, and you get out there and do it again. Mm-hmm. and try to motivate. And it's hard, because I know a lot of people have challenges, but the people that want to be an entrepreneur, that want to own a restaurant or any business, it's mindset. You've got to create that mindset for yourself to be successful.
And another great potential title is, being mindset. That's a whole nother conversation.
We can talk about next time.
We'll catch that next time. I keep talking over you. I apologize.
All right. I'm coming out there again. I'm looking for property out there, just so you know. I'm going to do some business in your state. I like it out there.
Yeah, it's beautiful and green. My daughter's in California. She went to school down at Pepperdine and just graduated. You did? Pepperdine. Yeah, the wave.
Yeah. Went to school, graduated. What a great school too.
Yeah.
That is a good school.
Yeah, she just graduated this past spring. Thank you. It was No, she won't leave California. She's been there about 10 years now.
And you've been to Pepperdine? You've been there to Pepperdine?
Yeah, many times.
It's so nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's there's nothing better than being up on that mountain and looking down over the Pacific and Malibu Beach and all that good stuff.
What was her degree in?
She ended up getting her degree in journalism. She was.
Good for her. I have a friend. His daughter just graduated. They probably know each other. She's out of Chicago.
Yeah, they probably do.
Good for her.
That is cool. Yeah. She was studying psychology. She thought she might go down that path, and then she kind of shifted gears and got her first job about 4 weeks ago. So she's gotten her first paycheck or two, and starting to understand taxes.
Yeah, I was going to say, you read my daughter's got their first paycheck too. And they go like, Dad, they took all my money. I go, welcome to my world. So
now you know how it feels. You're exactly right. Well, let me sign off on this, and I'll turn this recorder off, and then we'll wrap up, Andy. But again, for all our listeners, I'm here with Archibald, and had a great conversation with Andy. He's the founder. He's got 5 locations now in California, and he's expanding. We'll soon be seeing several more and looking to double his size. And if you haven't had the opportunity to have a meal at Archibald's Burgers, please get down to one of their locations. I can't list them off the top of my head, but I bet Andy can. Where are you at again? What cities?
We're off the 15 in Victorville and Bear Valley and Menifee, Newport. We are in Belmont Shore, Long Beach, California. We are in Ontario, California, and Chino Hills, California. I believe I got them all.
Yeah, I think you did. I counted them off. So again, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you sharing your expertise and knowledge.
Call me anytime. Take care.
Yes, sir. And all of you who are listeners, thank you again for being with us on the Local Leaders Podcast. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.